Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for August 7th, 2026. I'm Benji Fisher, sharing my screen and moderating, and also present are Gareth Alexander, Ralph Kohler, and Simo Helston. We're going to revisit this issue for the sake of the recording. It's number 284-8507. Indicate that grouping elements have child element errors for UX and A11Y, usability and accessibility, that is. And let's look first at the steps to reproduce. And I've already done the initial steps on my test site, which is this one with the umami fave icon. And Ralph has set up a test site, and that's this one with the Drupal fave icon. So in settings.php, we set extension discovery scan tests to true. That lets us install test modules. And then we installed the form test module, set both the default and admin theme to Claro. And on both of those sites, I've visited the page form test/details contains required fields. So actually what I'm going to do, you won't be able to see this, but I'm going to switch to the main branch, clear caches just in case. And then on the main branch, if we don't fill out any of these required fields that are hidden inside the details elements, all three get expanded. Each one gets highlighted in red, indicating that we fill out a required field. The error message, there's one for each of them. Required text field is required text area, required select field. What happens with Ralph's test site? Inside the first details element, there's not one, but two text fields. So we get two messages related to that one, and the other two are the same. So that I think is the main difference. Now this is odd. In the main branch, there's only one text field rather than two. So I guess the merge request must include some changes to the form test module. So another thing is that we have this icon added. So we don't just rely on color to see that there's an error. We also have an icon to indicate that. Any other comments at this point, or does anyone need more context? Go ahead, Ralph.
Oh, no, forget it. I just wondered why first and second, but now I see that the label of the first is actually called first require text field.
Yes.
So, yeah, forget. Strike mine.
Sorry, can I just ask? There seems to be two merge requests. There's merge request 16294 and 16591. And I'm just wondering, there seems to be two options. I'm just wondering which one we're looking at.
This is the second one.
Okay.
What we are looking at right now, the one from my installation is, one second, merge request 16591.
Perfect.
The opt2 one.
And I've just switched from the main branch to the first option, and I think I see something that, as far as I can tell, is identical to Ralph's.
Could you switch between the tabs quickly, just for if you can spot anything?
Except the fact that I
The
highlighted the
width,
word second in yours.
no, the width is the left side, the left border of
Yes.
that field set is had a broader width.
So does everyone notice that this border is thicker in my version? This is the umami fave icon, and it's narrower in Ralph's version. So let's go back to the issue, and I started with the steps to reproduce. Let's quickly review the problem or motivation. Invalid child elements within grouping elements, like details and vertical tabs, are invisible to the user when the grouping element is closed or not active. Um, and then there's this note: due to some of the comments below, this issue should only contain changes to the base system and Claro. The Claro changes will probably transfer to default admin with minor modifications. So that's sort of a technical issue about the planned default admin theme for Drupal 12. Um, and then there are some follow-ups for that theme and a follow-up for Olivero. Um, so, when I had the main branch checked out, we got something pretty similar to this, but I guess the test module only had one text field instead of two. It already opens up all three. It was missing this icon. So maybe the issue doesn't really show itself with details element. But maybe let's look at the proposed resolution. To improve the user experience and accessibility, we should indicate when there are errors inside. And maybe I'll go back to the main branch. And if I just reload this page, um, the only the actual fields are getting marked, not the details element. Here, the details element is marked, as well as the actual fields. So I think that should probably be mentioned in the proposed resolution. So the details elements are automatically opened up when you submit. But option one is to reuse the red side border width and error icon from the page top error block. However, use the same red color that's used for invalid fields and label. So it's saying that it's using the same red that we see here. You know what? I know how I can do this. I will duplicate the tab. And I will switch back to the first merge request. And now we can compare all three. First tab is the main branch. Second, sorry, second tab is the first merge request. Third tab is the second merge request. So I guess this border is the same color as the error text here, but it's very thick. That's part of the proposed resolution in option 1. And reuse the error icon from the top block. So it's this error icon here. Same error icon here gets reused here. And use the same color that's used for invalid fields and labels. And 2, append visually hidden child error to the elements visible label. So the elements visual label is this, and that.
Now from the field set or the details, you're looking at the label of that one.
So I'm just
Instead.
supposed to look here.
And underneath you see the span with contains error.
Yes. So here's a visually hidden span contains error. So that is option 1. Option 2, I'm not looking at vertical tabs, so I'll only look at the first part of option 2. The inactive error state, let the icon be the non-color visual cue and use a thinner side border, same width as the blue side border for open accordion details and active vertical tabs. So it uses this narrower width, and just this icon is the visual indicator, and there's still, I believe, the same visually hidden text. So there's an icon or the visually hidden text contains error. So I guess even though their details elements are opened in the main branch, the problem is that um, for people using screen readers, at least, you have to go inside the details element to see the error. And we need some way to indicate that indicate on the details element that there's an error condition. Is that the point? I got a thumbs up from Ralph. All right, let's look next at go back to the steps to reproduce. Shall we look at accordion or vertical tabs? I don't know that we'll have time to look at both, but go ahead, Ralph.
I would vote for the vertical tabs because there you see the reason why there is a second merge request, and it illustrates the problem pretty well.
Okay.
So on the accounts settings page.
I'm sorry, what settings page?
The account settings page.
Yeah. So I'll just copy this, try to copy this. I'm pretty sure my viewport is wide enough. Um, let me close the browser tools, and with one or more tabs, remove the value for the required subject field and then click Save. Um, so let's clear out two of them, both required.
And could you also clear out the welcome, no approval required, please?
Uh, the fourth one. Okay. And which one should I leave active?
Then we switch between the tabs afterwards. Just save.
Okay. So leaving this welcome no approval active. So we'll look at it more closely in a minute. Again, I'll close the browser tools. I'll scroll down to the tabs. I'll clear out the first one, the second one, and the fourth one, and submit the form. Um, and I will also switch back to the main branch once again. And do the same test here with the main branch. Scroll down, clear that out. Oops, second one. And the fourth one. And submit. So here's the main branch, the current behavior. I think we get one error message saying subject field is required, and that's the same across the two field branches, the two merge requests. So this is the one that I had selected. It's still selected, and it shows the error. But we know that these first two are also missing the subject. So that's the main branch. Here's the first merge request. So we have three of the vertical tabs marked as they should be. They have the icon as well as the color. They have the thick red border in this first merge request. And one of them is the active tab. And we also see the error indication for the input field itself. Here it's similar, except the border is narrower on these first two. The thicker border indicates the active vertical tab. Is that the only difference between the two? This
Yes.
thinner border?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, the thicker border is the active arrowing, and the thinner is the standard. And could you tap the admin user awaiting approval
Okay, so
tab? Yeah, so you see now all that is the standard width for all the states there, and only the active error state is double the width probably.
I think either of these is a big improvement over what we have in the main branch, where there's no indication at all for these first two until we select them. Um, Here with the first merge request, the only indication I see that this one is active is the absence of that thin gray border on the right. And I think we brought this up the last time we looked at it. That's certainly not enough of an indication. Here we have the thicker red border. Um, Go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, but personally, um, just from a cognitive perspective, I have a harder time with the thinner width to recognize. So like in merge request one, um, and to distinguish basically the state of um, it's not very apparent or self-explanatory that the thinner is basically the error state and a bit thicker one is the active error state. So I still think it might need some sort of design input, but what I wonder, would it make sense in, instead of just that absent border on the right for the active tab to make basically a background color, something like that, to make it more apparent. Um, Not sure, but I have a problem with if you to click again one of the welcome awaiting approval, please. Oh no, you are on merge request one. Could you switch to the second and click the welcome? If you have those next to each other, or and if you have three in a row and have one in the middle, um, to distinguish the same color, just a slightly thicker or broader width, I consider suboptimal. And yeah, but I don't know exactly how to solve it. I just know it's challenging.
Okay, so for you, the main problem is how to indicate which of these is the active tab.
Yeah. In particular, if you have several tabs with an error next to each other, then it becomes tricky. And in general, also that is a gripe of mine. I've opened an issue several months or years ago about the structural how structure is communicated. All those, for example, take a look at the navigation sidebar. You have those light borders, same as for the tabs. All have a color contrast of far less than 3:1, and that way, to recognize regions and components gets really, really challenging.
So you're referring to this separator line?
Yeah, and the border on the right between the sidebar and the main, yeah, that one exactly.
Hmm.
In bright daylight or people with eye conditions, they are nearly invisible, and I personally have a hard time to recognize them.
Uh-huh. Gareth?
Um, I agree 100% with Ralph, but I wanted to just flag in comment number 225, Mike Herschel has commented, this is looking great as far as I can tell. It's the last blocker, etc. Um, this is such a major improvement in UX and accessibility. We could defer non-critical issues such as e.g. thickness of the border. Um, and I guess his suggestion is that we try to separate perfect from good and make a serious improvement. But I do also want to acknowledge that that is suboptimal as well.
Yeah, on the one hand, usability is a core gate. We're not supposed to put changes into Drupal core unless they're usable and accessible.
Mhm.
I guess usability and accessibility are two core gates. Um, on the other hand, what we're currently stuck with is clearly inferior to either of these options. I think also if we go back to the top of this issue, um, near the bottom of the description, um, it has usability and accessibility questions. For one, for vertical tabs, is the difference in border width now sufficient? Any suggestions for making the active error state more apparent? Is this problem a blocker? And what are the remaining blockers for this to be acceptable in a beta state? Um, and I think some follow-up issues have already been created. Um, well, this one that I'm highlighting now looks like the same title. So maybe one of these is for the admin theme and one is for Olivero. Um, so that's they're not distinguished by the titles. Let me look for the comments.
In comment number 215, I reopened and repurposed misleading icon used on form validation. And there is, we'll need to sort out for indicate that grouping elements have child element errors for, yeah, 215.
I thought there was a more recent comment that mentioned opening some follow-up issues.
I guess it's worth the 215. It's basically the main one is about the icon, and that way, that misleading icon used on form validation that is repurposed. And it's about the iconography choice.
So for the sake of the recording, this is 2859914. Um, when a form validation is displayed, it has a prohibition icon to the left of the validation error. Claro, default admin, Olivero. The association one has looking at a prohibition sign is not necessarily that of an error. Aside that, it also has to be noted that admin report status is using a different kind of icon for the error state. The iconography should be consistent across the entire admin UI. Otherwise, it creates ambiguity and increases the cognitive load. Okay, so this is a follow-up issue or a related issue about exactly which icon to use. Um, I think that's suitable for a follow-up issue. Does anyone see that as a blocker for the main issue we're talking about?
No.
Okay, so let's close this tab. Um, as Ralph said, it would be nice to have some design input at this point. Um, I mean, I noticed that if I click on any vertical tab, I get these green top and bottom borders that pretty clearly indicate it, but I believe Kent said that those are focus indicators, not the active vertical tab. Um, and they're present if I click on any vertical tab, error or not. The only thing is that I guess if I select one and submit the form, when the page reloads, the one I selected is still active, but it's not focused. Um, I'm sorry, the one I selected did not have an error. Wait a minute. This is the first. I guess I must have switched to the main branch. Let me switch back to the merge request. Okay. So I select something that doesn't have an error and I save the configuration, and the one that I had selected is no longer focused. I'm not sure where the focus is, if anywhere. Um, so the active one is only indicated, as I said, by this lack of um, a thin gray border on the right. If I focus the active one, then I get the green bars. Um, so I think those green bars are certainly adequate indication, Ralph.
Yeah, but they disappear. If you have a long node edit form, for example, and you edit something in another field, or just go scroll a little bit up, please. And no, back down, down again, down again, down again.
Uh,
So that you see the notification email address and the welcome no approval. Now click into that one and it's gone. And that way, you either have to remember what is the active tab or you have to try. Oh, or pick
Also,
one.
if you tab, yeah, also if you tap into the actual field that has the error, then
Yeah.
it's not trivial to distinguish which one of the tabs you're inside. So it's just a line then.
okay,
Yep.
so focus and active are certainly decoupled if I'm tabbing and selecting.
Um, and just one note and one suggestion. Uh, Personally, I like the first merge request better with the thicker borders. They are way more easy to recognize in the regular state compared to the thinner ones. I like the thicker ones because they're easier cognitively. Um, and just one, I wonder if would it be viable turning circling back to the point I made before about that structure. If for the active tab you make for the vertical tab itself, we are currently in welcome awaiting approval. Make basically the upper and lower border stronger, and also basically in the same color the rest of that content, the wrapper around. And that way, if you make it that way stronger and leave the for the other tabs that light, it would be way more easy to distinguish. If you, for example, simply use the border color of what you have on a field, like for notification email address.
So are you suggesting that we use a thick black or gray line for
Not
active
thicker.
but not focused and use the thick green border when it is focused?
Yeah, I would just change that light gray it currently has to a to the same color, for example, a field has. Don't make it thicker. The width is keep it as is. Make it
Are,
just a
are you
higher
talking
color
about
contrast.
the right border or the top and bottom borders?
I'm um I'm talking about the what currently is green,
Okay.
those two, and then not, but also the rest of that, um, all those borders around the edit, the welcome email messages, send this new member, subject and body, the whole the whole rectangle around.
So I think you're talking about the top and bottom borders then. Those are the ones that are green.
Yeah, and not no, I not mean just is it possible that I'm able to use my a pointer or something like that?
I think there's some sort of annotation feature in Zoom.
Uh, or could I quickly just for a second share my screen? That way I could use my mouse
Sure.
cursor. What I mean is simply if we're in this one, simply that border, that border, that border, that border, that border, that border, and that border. So that basically that whole tab and the card, however you want to call it, the border of that card are all in the same color, like for example, the field. So it has a color contrast, a stronger color contrast, and keep those borders of non-active light. That would be a compromise. Because, oops, I've already stopped. 1 second. Okay.
Okay, so you want the entire border around uh, around the content of the vertical tabs. You want
Yeah.
that to be darker,
Yeah.
not whiter. Okay. And then that's the same color as the right-hand borders of the vertical tabs.
Yeah.
And also the top and bottom borders of the inactive tabs. You want all of those to,
No, of inactive tabs, I would keep it that it is okay to keep it that way to
okay,
distinguish it. Otherwise, you have again the same problem. But if you just make the active tab, the borders stronger, that way it's way more apparent. And on the other hand, I would keep on the side, on the left side of the vertical tab, um, go with the width used in merge request 1.
okay, and that's what we're looking at now.
Yeah, it's easier to recognize than the thinner ones.
So it was merge request 2 that used the differing thicknesses. Merge request 1, you like the thick red border. So
It's
let's see
way
if
too.
we can get some of this just using browser tools. Can I implement your suggestions? Um, so not that div. I think this div.
Yeah.
And then let me look for border. So this div has border top 0. Is it the inner div that has?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's color gray 200
So is there like a color gray 800?
or make it 500. Oh, nothing happened.
Didn't it? I thought it. Well, let's just make it black. Uh, I can't change that.
So
I was able to, I can't delete it. I did make, There we go. BLACK. Well, that's when it's focused. I guess I'm not seeing the change. My cursor is better at this sort of thing than I am. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong board. I'm looking at that one. And as you say, there's no change in this one, which is what I was aiming for. Um, is there yet another wrapper that I should be looking at? Input error color. Oh, and I seem to have lost my Zoom chat, so I don't know if any of you are requesting access. Okay. Is there yet another wrapper? No. So this is the outermost one. Um, so let's do this. Let us put on this element border color black. All right, so that is not the right one. Try the same thing here. That did not make a difference either. So go to this one. I'm
Vertical tabs border. I found it. The variable name is vertical dash tabs dash border. And the color is DEDFE4, 1 pixel solid. It's on
all right. So how do I change this?
it's on class.
So I guess I've added a new black border. My aim was to change this thin gray one to,
Yeah, it's search in the CSS for the following. And then replace it simply with and that is the value behind the vertical the variable, and then replace and change the DEDFE4 with black, for example. And it's on the div with the attribute data Drupal selector edit mail.
so
Search
this one.
for for this element. 1 second, I haven't seen.
Color.
No, it's just vertical tabs border, not color, just border.
So it's this rule here.
Yeah. But if you search in DOM for the data Drupal selector equals edit mail, in what I've posted in the chat, then you might find the element in
Ah,
question.
that did it, I think.
Ah, yeah. Yep. Excellent.
Okay, so that's part of what you asked for. That makes the right-hand borders of the visual of the vertical tabs this darker color.
Yeah. And then only the upper and lower border of the active vertical tab would have to have the same the same contrast or same color choice. And that way it would be easy to distinguish from the rest. And that way you would communicate what is the active tab. But I wouldn't, that black is too strong. That is for sure. But to illustrate the direction, it's totally fine.
Okay. And you would not apply that same color to these borders between the vertical tabs?
Not for the inactive ones. I would only apply the border color to the active one.
I
Okay.
think that would basically mean that it would be worth thinking if there would be also the active border color in other elements as well on the form. So if there is a details element or something like that, if you have two open details elements, so the active there could be a concept of active element borderline or something like that.
Okay, so you'd like to have something similar for details elements. All right, well, that's certainly an actionable request. I wonder what sort of pushback we'll get to that. So again, you want a darker color, maybe not quite this dark, going around here, and then you also want it along the top and bottom of the active, unfocused vertical tab. But if we then focus it still gets the green.
Yeah. And if you could switch back to the first example in the steps to reproduce we've looked at with the details, that will illustrate Simo's point, and I agree to that.
I think this one.
Or even in that case, in case of a field set, I think I wouldn't I wouldn't distinguish between them. I would simply make them strong because it's strictly speaking, a field set is a user interface component, and that needs and you have to be able to recognize existence. And if you could you reload it with clean without the errors, please?
Yeah, I think if I do
Yeah,
that,
exactly. Because in here you also have that light border that is barely recognizable, and if you expand it, it's the same. It's again that structure. You're unable to recognize basically how the interface is structured, and like in that case, a details element is also a structural element, and you're unable to recognize the borders there.
okay, so we have just 2 minutes left. And the question is whether this is a blocker for the rest of the work. And it seems to me if you're suggesting that we change this color when there's no error, that's a separate issue and should be, and we should open a separate issue
Yeah.
to darken that. That's acceptable.
Yeah, but for the vertical tab, I think it's in scope.
I actually noticed that here that with the green one, we're talking about top and bottom lines, but it should be surrounding the thing because it's a
Yeah.
focus indicator. And there was a discussion maybe a year or two ago with the accessibility team that focus indicators should be kind of a complete, even if it's not like it was the recommendation then, even if it's not strictly speaking WebCAG breach, but having that go, so it shouldn't be the green one shouldn't be under the red one. So there should be also
the focus indicator should have priority, and this should have a complete green border.
Yeah, I think, or it with fields, it's kind of the outline is kind of there is a offset.
Okay, well, we are at the end of the hour. Any last comments? And I'm sorry we haven't quite reached consensus on a recommendation here, but any last comments? I think we do have a good suggestion, and the remaining question is whether it has to be implemented in the current issue or whether we can open a separate issue to discuss it. And I guess Ralph feels pretty strongly that it needs to be addressed as part of this issue.
Yeah, and also about that focus indicator being under the colored left border, so it's something that exists already. So it's not something it's not a degradation. It's something that is kind of also with the current blue active one. If it's so it appears for the ones that don't have any line, but it's currently it already exists with the blue active marker, so it's not something that this issue is introducing, so we don't have to deal with it here. Maybe just make a note.
Okay, so going back to the main branch again, focus indicator
Is the
only.
focus indicator on the left underneath the blue border?
It looks to me as if it's overridden by the blue border.
Okay.
The left and right borders are overridden. The top and bottom are the focus indicator. All right, I do have to leave. Hope we can come to agreement on this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll be back next week. Thanks all for joining.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.